guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, I'm Allie, and today I have a book video for you guys because, I know it's already mid-January of 2023, which my mind is blown, but I finally have my book recap ready for 2022. So that's the video today. I'm gonna start this by saying I have loved books for years. I've always been a reader. I love getting lost in a good book. I used to read all the time, and then I just kind of fell out of it for different reasons at different times. But one that sticks out the most to me is I still sometimes do, but I used to use books as like my crutch. So whenever I was going through a really hard time, I always went to a book, and it kind of just became like a really toxic relationship with books. And I think because of that too, I even think back to some books that I read during those hard times, and I'm like, I don't even remember the book. Like, it's bad. Like, I am a known dissociating person, so I kind of have dissociated a lot in the past, and unfortunately some of that is books because I was just pairing those two things together. If I was really anxious, I would throw myself into a book to escape reality, and same with being maybe just feeling low with my mental health in general. And that's not what this video is about, but I say all of this because last year, 2022, I had started dabbling with reading again. I'm like, oh my god, I've missed this so much. And I had realized the fall, or like the year before that, I had only read like maybe 5 books total. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I used to read all the time. Like, I just fell out and started reading, and I became the bookworm again. And I did pause a couple of times because I feel like that realization kind of sat in that I was using books and I was kind of having like a toxic relationship with books. So because of that, I made sure I took pause and breaks throughout the year, the beginning of the year, until I feel like I got to a good point. And I'm happy to say, like, I feel like I've done it. I have like a really good relationship with books now where I can actually really enjoy them. Not saying that my mental health is fixed, because it's not. But I've noticed now that when my mental health kind of starts going downhill, I kind of take a pause from books, and I'm like, okay, I need a minute to get in my head, figure out what's going on, and, kind of try to work on things, and then I'll jump back into the book so that I'm not missing out on like good books, and getting toxic again, using things to kind of help me cope. So yeah, it's just kind of like a thing that wasn't necessarily a goal for me, but now going into a new year, I'm like, wow, like that's actually like something major that really turned around for me for the better and has changed everything for me. Because you guys, the past, I would say 6 months, my nose has been in a book and I've been loving it. I got on Goodreads. I swear I know I had an account years ago, but I don't remember my login at all. So the beginning of last year, I made a Goodreads account, a new one. It's linked down below if you want to follow me there if you are on Goodreads. And so I just started, I think I put in books that I read in 2021, and then I'm just starting with 2022 and just going on. So any past books before that are not on there, and that's why. But this year, when I made that account, I was like, I'm just gonna go for 35 books this year. And I was like, okay, but I really think I can bypass that. But at the same time, it kind of seemed like a steep number for me. And I think I read like close to 10 books, and that's kind of when I went into like that long slump, and I was like, okay, it's a good thing I only challenged myself to 35. But the past 6 months, or the last 6 months of 2022, man, I really upped my game, and I was reading a lot, and it really, I feel like anyways, stepped up the game for me, and my number of books. And this is where I do want to say, I know I'm rambling, but I do just want to say that it does not matter how many books you read in a year. Like I said, 2021, I read 5 books, you guys. So from that to going into 2022, I read 61 books. And I feel like for me, that is a decent number, especially going from 5 to 61. It's on, and not just that, that's probably honestly the most books I've read in 1 year. It's not like a crazy amount. It's not like, you know, all the booktubers. But you know what? I really enjoyed it. I had so much fun. I'm setting the bar a little higher going into 2023, but I don't know. I feel like if I consume too many books, a lot of things start getting meshed, and I don't like that. Like, I really want to spend that time with that book. I really want to remember the story. So all of that just to say that I know that there's always the pressure out there of like, oh my gosh, that person read over 200 books that year. I only read like 20. That's amazing. Like, that is amazing. Don't let the numbers of books like discourage you. Like, I get it. I have a long TBR. I would love to complete a lot of books because there's so many books that I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds so good. So I get it. And there is that little bit of FOMO there, but like, don't be hard on yourself. It is always good to set goals though, so I am hoping to up that goal a little bit, and I am working on my book goals for 2023, so I will be filming a video on that for you guys. But today is all about 2022 because this is where I recap everything. We're gonna talk about all my books, and I finally have my last book blog up. My blog is linked down below. You can also check out all of my reviews over on Goodreads. And now it's time for me to start logging in everything I've been reading this year because I've already started. So like I said, I set a goal for 35 books for 2022 and I read 61 books. Goodreads says that this is 8,871 pages, which is crazy. My longest book was Blankets, which is, funny enough, a graphic novel by Craig Thompson at 592 pages. And my shortest was The Grown-Up by Gillian Flynn at 64 pages. It was a short book. And I was actually shocked by this. My average rating on books is 4 stars, or like I say, 4 skulls. Now, although I was reading books, I was reading different genres, and on top of that, I read some graphic novels, I read some manga, but we are going to talk about genres and all of that too, but you kind of get to see like a little brief of, you know, all the books that I read. And with that, you wouldn't be surprised to know that if you've been on my channel for a little while now, my top genre at 15 books was the thriller mystery category. 15 books that were cozy mysteries or suspense thrillers, and it's a pattern for me. I love to be on the edge of my seat. I love books that really grab my attention, that are page turners, and that just blow my mind, honestly. Those are like my favorites. So I don't know, is thriller and mysteries my favorite genre? Okay, but this one is shocking, and this is because the end of this year, I have been dabbling in so much romance that romance actually comes in at number 2 in my genres. I found that to be so weird for me, but yeah, 12 romance books. Who would have thought? I used to be, you know, somebody who would read Nicholas Sparks books and, you know, different things like that. So this isn't like brand new to me, but I'm telling you guys, this last year, not only was I kind of like going for that healthy relationship with books, but on top of that, like I just fell down the rabbit hole, book talk, book YouTube or booktube, the Goodreads, and just like now I feel like my brain has absorbed so much that it's like I'm following people who I used to not follow, and I'm just loving their content. They're inspiring me for my content, and I feel like I'm so inspired again to create content for YouTube that's not just one thing, and I'm having so much fun with it. It's kind of taken that stress off of me of doing the same thing all the time, you know? Now I get to really play up something else, and I'm just loving it so much. And I'm a Sagittarius. I'm an introvert Sagittarius, so like I'm adventurous when it comes to wanting to try new things and new hobbies and stuff like that, but I'm an introvert, so a lot of those hobbies are at home. But yeah, I really like to explore with my books, and that's why I think there's so many genres too. But number 3 is horror. I read 9 horror books, and I feel like I had some really good horror books this year. I really enjoyed most of them. Horror is definitely one of my favorites. I feel like I usually like horror books more than I like the thriller and mysteries. I feel like I read more thriller mystery, but if you looked at my ratings, I feel like horror usually gets higher ratings than the thriller mystery does. Next up is fiction at 6 books. Then we have fantasy at 4 books. I don't dabble in a whole lot of fantasy. I actually want to, so if you have any recommendations, let me know. I've been looking at some, so that may be a goal for 2023. And then nonfiction, 2. You can just tell, it is just not my my thing. I don't really read a lot of nonfiction. I actually have one that I'm about to start, but like, I don't know, it has to be really intriguing. It has to catch my eye for me to be like, all right, you know, I'll try this out. One of them, I think, was like with a book club with some girlfriends, and it was like a motivational one about this woman's life, and she did like motivational things with it. And then the other one was true crime, so that's why. Okay, with that being said, I just want to throw out there, I just like fantasy, I'm kind of dabbling in a little bit of sci-fi. I want to read more sci-fi in 2023, but I actually did have some sci-fi. I just felt like those books fell more into the horror category versus sci-fi, so that's why they're not really mentioned, but there was at least 2 or 3 sci-fi horrors that I read in 2022. Also, I think there was 1 or 2 of those fiction books that were historical fiction, so there was a little bit of that too. But overall, I'm an array of genres, and I love, I don't like to just stick to one thing. I really like to bounce around. I like to dabble in all the genres. And if you're wondering where the math was at on that, other books that were not listed in genres were the graphic novels and mangas that I read. So any of the remaining ones are there. I just didn't really categorize them with the others. I guess I could have. But without further ado, before I wrap up this video, I'm ready to jump into those books. So I'm going to be starting with my lowest ranking books all the way to my highest ranking books. Now, this is all preference. Now that you know a little bit more about me, you know that I really love the mystery, horror, thriller type vibes. I don't know, those just do something more for me than romance, but I'm not here to judge anybody. Please don't judge me, and I hope that I don't offend you if I have rated some of your favorites low, or if there's a book you absolutely hate and I rated it high. I apologize. I know all of our tastes are different. I just know I'm always curious to see what other people are loving or what their taste in books are. I don't know, it's really fun to see different preferences and maybe even see somebody else's view on a book that you didn't think about before. So I actually have 6 2-star. I actually don't have any 1-star though. You know, I try not to be too harsh with my reviews, and I'm also not somebody, you'll notice, I'm not really somebody that goes like 2.5 or 3.5, 4.5. I don't know. I just feel like I'm just that even. Like, it's either a 3-star or it's a 4-star. But sadly, my first 2-star was actually, I believe, the first book I read in the year. And that was The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And I know a lot of people really love that book. And although I do think it had potential and I think it had like good things in it that was like being addressed, it just was not for me. And one more time, I'm going to say I do have a book blog, so there, and also Goodreads. So if you guys want to know more of my thoughts or where I'm coming from with these skull ratings, then you guys can check that out, because I just know if I review all of these, we're gonna be here forever, so I want to try to be a little brief about this. I also have book videos on some of these, so you can also check those out if you want to see, instead of reading reviews, actually see me reviewing them. Next up is A Faint Cold Fear. It is part of the Grant County series. I believe it's book 3 by Karen Slaughter. It's my least favorite so far that I've read from the Grant County series, and I've actually stopped there. I have the next, I think, like 3 or 4 books in that series that I still need to read. They're on the TBR, but yeah, this one kind of did me in and got 2 stars. Next up is Sharp Edges by Gillian Flynn, and if you watch my channel, oh my gosh, you know how just how much trauma I went through with this book to know why it's at 2 stars. Next up is The Searcher by Tana French. I ended up giving this book a 2. I couldn't let myself give it more than that. I just couldn't. Then we have The Christmas Wedding Guest by Susan Mallory. My go at reading Christmas books this year, I was like, oh yeah, I want to get in the vibe. I want to read some Christmas books. You guys, I read 2 and I was like, I can't. This book got a 2 for me. It was very, very Hallmarky, but I just realized that Hallmark in books is just not the vibe for me. That Christmas Hallmark, I may watch some cheesy Christmas Netflix movies, but I draw the line when it goes into a book. And the last 2-star was actually going to be my last book of the year, and I was like, oh, hell no, I'm reading at least one more book. I refuse to end this year on a 2-star book. And unfortunately, that was by Christina Lauren, which I had just found out. It's friends, so there's Christina and then there's Lauren. I didn't know that. That's actually really cool. But I read their book, The Unhoneymooners. And I know that a lot of people really love this book, but I just didn't get the hype. I just really didn't. There was so many plot holes. It was super cringy for me, and I just didn't get the hype. But I do think it's cool that they're friends and that it's not just one author. And I didn't know that whenever I did my review on them. So if you guys see even future videos with me talking about that book, at the time I didn't know that it was 2 different people. I believe I have 10 3-star books, so let's kind of speed run these. The first 3 actually are all from Samantha March. She is a beauty creator here on YouTube, but she is also an author, and she has been writing the series The Six, which revolve around 6 girlfriends and all of their lives. So I actually read book 1, I think last year or the year before, but I reread it this year to kind of have like a fresh review of it because I was behind reading book 2 and book 3 was coming out. And now book 4 is out. So I really do want to continue the series. I will say that. But I have given all 3 of these books 3 stars. I don't know. I feel like there's just more to them that I end up wanting. They're kind of shorter. They're kind of fast-paced. And yeah. But I did read Christy, Scarlett, and Lauren. And that's book 1, 2, and 3 from Samantha March. Next up, Sugar. Okay, I give 3 because of the historical fiction and all that, but this book was just like, honestly, I'm speechless. Like, it was so, so sad, but then it was just kind of like cutthroat and just like, I don't know, I was like, where is this going? Like, this could have been such a good book, but where is this going? I mean, again, the historical fiction and the realness that it brings with racism and everything else involved in that book, so, so good. But then the actual story of it and the characters, I was just like, what is going on right now? Then we have Kiss Cut, which was book 2 of the Grant County from Karen Slaughter. I gave this one 3 stars. It was better than the 3rd book, but not as good as the first one in the series, in my opinion. And it was a little rough. I read some witchy books, and I tried witchy romance, and they both fell into 3 skulls. The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling, and Witch Please by Anne Aguirre. And I say both of these together, even though they're different authors, because they're both so, so similar. There are witches, and they happen to be witch cousins who run a store together, and then there is a weird love interest that comes in. One of the books, it's a muggle, you know, not a witch or a wizard, so there's like conflict there with the family. The other one, it's another witch, but like he is like a royal original family, if you will. So there's a little bit of conflict there, and they've had like a past relationship, so it's weird. You know, they just have the same vibes. They live in like this small town, and I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like comfy, cozy witch vibes. If I had to recommend out of the 2, I would say read The Ex-Hex. I think it was better. but not by much. I also read from Megan Miranda for the first time in 2022. I read 3 of her books for a video, 3 books by Megan Miranda. My least favorite out of the 3 I read was The Perfect Stranger, so it did get us 3 skulls, but I still really enjoyed it. It's just not my favorite from her, and I just feel like there could have been more to it. Like, I feel like it was kind of predictable and a little lackluster in parts. I also read 3 books by Colleen Hoover this last year, and my first books from Colleen Hoover. Without Merit, I feel like probably would have gotten 4 stars, but it was YA and just not really my vibe, and there was so much going on in this book, you guys. My head was just kind of spinning while I was reading it. I have mentioned over and over, I think it would be a really good book for people who love YA. I don't know, I just feel like it just didn't really do more for me like I feel like it might have done in the past when I was a teenager, but it did get 3 stars. And then lastly, another YA, Whiteout, by quite a few people. There's, I think it's Donnell Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. And I would say, like, it's really, really cool that the cover is breathtaking of this book, and that's why I picked it up. I also think it's really cool because it kind of looks like a movie poster with all their names on it. But I think the concept is really cool. The authors all took turns with chapters and with certain characters. So because of that, I give it props. Like, I think that's really, really cool. But besides that, it was YA, and there was major things I feel like wrong with the plot and everything that was going on, and with like the conditions they were in, the characters, all of that. There's a lot to it, but I just felt like there was a lot of wrong things with the storyline, and that's why I did end up giving it a 3, but I do think it's still really cool, and there was a lot of really cool characters, and I do think it's a cute YA book if you're into those. Jumping into 4 skulls, I actually had, I think 24 4 skulls, which I feel like is great. I feel like that is great. Like, I feel like, don't get me wrong, like, I really want to have a lot of 5 skull reads, but at the same time, like, I just felt like I got to a point where I just started being a lot pickier. I'm like, I want my favorite books to be 5. So books that, like, almost did that for me, or maybe just lacked in one certain thing, just got the boot to 4. That might be kind of harsh, but I really wanted to categorize it to where, like, my top favorites are 5. This is no certain order of how I read them throughout the year either. They're just kind of all thrown in here because the very last book I read in 2022 was Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger. Really good. This is a, like, I don't know, it's like horror, thriller, mystery. It's suspenseful. There's a lot going on with it, and that's kind of like the issue that I had. I feel like there was 2 big plots that you read back and forth on, and then it all intertwined in the end, and I actually really enjoyed reading both plots, but I didn't like them combining into the end, and I think that's what did it for me. Besides that, I really enjoyed that read. It was so good. Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. There's been so many mixed feelings about this one. I definitely couldn't give it 5, but I gave it 4 because I do still think it was a pretty interesting read. I didn't mind the characters. They weren't my favorites ever, but the whole location, the way things are described, I actually really did like. I enjoyed the fast pace of it. Anytime it started to slow down and I was like, it would speed up. But I have to say, there is a few times where you kind of want that scene to last a little longer, and it just didn't. So there is tons of critiques, but at the same time, some of the horror elements in it I think are really cool, because if you didn't know, I mean, Such Sharp Teeth, it's about a werewolf, or it's a werewolf book, so it's kind of cool. Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This has been not my least favorite. It's, you know, a little bit ahead of Without Merit, but I couldn't give this one 5. I kind of was back and forth on it. I think actually in my Colleen Hoover video, I gave this one 5 in that video, but when I got around to typing out my blog and doing the actual review, I ended up giving it 4 stars because it just doesn't hit as good as It Ends With Us. It just doesn't. And I was like, I don't think this is like a top book for me. It still isn't a bad one, and it is a good book. The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson is a classic. It's so good. you know, I wasn't the hugest fan of the characters, and I kind of have a hard time with that. And I think it's also my love for the Netflix show, The Haunting of Hill House. I love the family dynamic versus how in the book they're all strangers, and I just didn't really like that as much. And some of the characters that you have in the show are not those. And I know the show is newer, and that's the book is the actual classic, but and that's why I still say it's 4. And I still think it's really good. But like the show, if you guys have not watched the Netflix show, The Haunting of Hill House, it is so good. It's one of my favorite shows ever. I love the way it was filmed. It's just creepy, eerie, and the characters are just amazing. Like they play the parts incredibly well. It's so good. And one of like the final scenes was, I know this is not related, you guys, but like I get hyped about this show. I love it. One of the final scenes like was like a straight 10-minute shot with the camera and the actors like not breaking. And I just think that's so fucking cool. I also tried Allie Hazelwood, Love on the Brain, and I liked it. I went really back and forth with this one too, but I ended up giving it a 4. I think it was really good. I actually have read another one from her in 2023, so you guys have to wait for that one. At the time, this was, or I think still, this was her newest one, Love on the Brain. It was good. There was just, I felt like it was still lacking some parts. I was just kind of like, what? You know, kind of like back and forth on it and stuff. But I can say, this is a spoiler from 2023, actually reading another book from hers. Her writing has really grown on me, and I think she's turning into one of my favorite romance authors. I don't know. Maybe it's something with STEM and romance for me. Is that a trope for me? A lot of my graphic novels got 4 for me. First we have The Cryptic Club by Sarah Anderson. Really, really cute. It's just super short. There's not a whole lot to it, and that's why I think it kind of got a 4, but it is really cute. It's about a lot of like mythical urban legends, that type of ordeal as cartoon characters. So you have like Loch Ness Monster and Mothman and like all of them, and they're just like cracking jokes. That's pretty much what it is, but it's cute, and it's a really like short read. It was cute. I'll be quick with this one because I know I've mentioned it a lot of times, but the Montague Twins, The Witch's Hand, it's volume 1 out of the series, by Nathan Page. Really good. I really enjoyed it. It's YA, and I really enjoyed it, so that says something, but it's pretty much, I feel like it almost is like an old comic. It's kind of cool in a way, but they're like, you know, trying to solve like this case or whatever, and yeah, so it's kind of like that detective vibe or whatever. It's those vibes, but it's really cute. I really enjoyed the characters. Blankets, oh my god, ripped my heart out. Craig Thompson wrote this, and I did see that it's fiction, but I also read that it's based on his life, so now I'm just confused. Nonetheless, it got 4 stars for me. It's a really just like heart-wrenching coming of age story. You know, the cover will fool you. You'll think, oh, this is a cute romance graphic novel. No, it's not. It's gonna make you cry. Also, Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I did give it 4 stars. You guys, I don't know. Tim Burton just has a way of just upping the creep factor, so this is one of those instances where the movie just did better than the book for me. But I mean, Coraline, the story, love it. Back to some books. We have A Dowry of Blood, and I know a lot of people really love this book, and then other people kind of feel mixed about it. I gave it 4 because I'm teetering back and forth. There's a lot of elements of it that I didn't like, but there's also elements of it that I really did like. And I know I'm being a little harsh on it because some of the elements I didn't like on it, I think I have to, it was just how some of the characters treated like some of the other characters, and honestly, I kind of wish there was more to the actual plot too, so I think that's why I give it 4, but at the same time, I love the way it was written. It's so beautiful. I actually want to read more from S.T. Gibson because the writing style and everything was just absolutely beautiful, breathtaking. I loved it. Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This one almost got 3 stars for me, I'm not gonna lie, but I still found it really interesting. I loved the like newspaper clippings and all of like the interview transcripts and all of those in between the chapters, those were the most interesting thing of the book. The plot just and storyline really needed more for me. The characters, some of them, I actually liked some of them, but some of the other ones just didn't really do it for me. But I'm a horror girl. I loved the horror references of all my favorite slasher movies. Just Like Home, oh my gosh, Sarah Gailey. Again, so many mixed emotions, and I've talked so much about it. The reason this didn't get a 5 for me was because there was just too much going on. I think it was an awesome story, but I just think it was so overwhelming that I needed to be a little underwhelmed, just a little bit, for me to, I think, enjoy it more than I did. And I know that sounds really, really, like, weird to say that, because you think it would be the, you know, the opposite effect, but if you've read it, if you know, you know. We have Such a Quiet Place by Megan Miranda. This was actually my favorite from Megan Miranda. It is cozy mystery vibes, Desperate Housewives vibes, all living on the same lane, and a double murder happens, and the suspect that is arrested is then acquitted, and she comes back to live on the lane, and there's just so much drama. It's a lot of fun. I also really enjoyed The Last House Guest by Megan Miranda. I didn't like it as much as Such a Quiet Place, but it was still really good. It kind of reminded me of Veronica Mars in a way, if you've watched that show. It's kind of like that storyline where, you know, her best friend is found dead, and then they're all just kind of like wondering like who did it or whatever, and she's trying to figure out who did it, and yeah, it's those vibes. And I love Veronica Mars, so. Dark Side by Belinda Bauer. I had really mixed emotions about this. It's a really slow book, you guys, but the last quarter of it is what did me in. The last quarter, chef's kiss. It's so fast-paced, page-turner, amazing, amazing ending. But I was like, I still was teetering on, but was that really worth it? But overall, I gave it a 4. Then we have Gone Girl and The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. The Grown Up is just a very fast-paced, literally like I said earlier, 64 pages. It's a really short read, but it's creepy and just weird and different, and I don't know, I feel like a lot of her stories have raunchiness to them for sure, but I don't know, I ended up really liking that short story. It was very fast-paced. I mean, one sitting and you've read it. It was good. Gone Girl, if you're like me and you've lived under a rock and you haven't watched or read Gone Girl, I mean, it'll really take you through it. Although some of it, I have to say, was pretty predictable, they still had me guessing the whole time, because I was like, oh, this is so predictable, and I'm like, but is it? But is it? And in some instances, it was, but they had you still kind of guessing, going back and forth, like, maybe I'm off, you know, like maybe it's this or maybe it's this, you know, but the overall storyline of that and the gifts and all of that, I just think was so cool, so unique, and just different than anything I've ever read. So I really liked it, and then I watched the movie. Catching Fire and The Hunger Games. I've read the first 2 books. I have not done the third one yet, so that's on my TBR for 2023, but I had never read them. I've only watched the movies, and since it had been a while since I had watched the movies, I was like, okay, now I'm gonna read the books and, you know, actually enjoy that like I would like a Harry Potter book. So that's what I did. I really loved them. Both of them got 4 stars for me. I think only because of the YA aspect of them. They're such good books. I mean, the movies I think are great too. I just think the whole concept of, you know, Panem and all of the whole storyline of it, I just think is so freaking cool and creative. And yeah, I really enjoyed reading those. I can't wait to pick up the third one. The Final Girls by Riley Sager, I really enjoyed. I kind of went through a roller coaster with his writing. I definitely want to pick up another one from him in the new year as well, or this year. I keep thinking I'm in 2022. I really enjoyed it. I liked the characters. I thought it was an interesting enough book. Not enough to give it a 5, but definitely a 4. Blindsided, Grant County #1. So this is the first book of the series by Karen Slaughter that I was talking about, I did actually really enjoy this. The characters are really hard to like, and I've noticed getting all the way into book 3 in the series that it kind of stays that way. I'm still having a hard time liking the characters, where although I really liked the first book, I thought like the character development would get better and better since it is a series versus just a, you know, a standalone. But that's why I've kind of taken a pause from the series, but I do want to get back into it. But I did think the whole storyline and everything for Blindsided, the first book, was really good, and I gave it a 4. Guys, I still want to continue the manga One Piece. I have only made it to volume 2, but I gave volume 2 4. It was really, really good. It's so entertaining and just an adventure manga, and I absolutely love that. But I know I'm so behind. I'm under a rock for not picking this up sooner, but and I know there's over 100 volumes. I'll get there eventually, but you know what? I've been slowing down on the manga recently and just reading a lot of books, but I'll get back into it eventually. Then we have The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. I don't know how you say his last name. But I really, really liked this book. It's kind of a little fuzzy for me. A couple books I read around that time are a little fuzzy for me, but I really enjoyed this one. I didn't know how deep it was gonna get with talking about like trigger warnings, depression, and you know, how low a person can get, but the idea of going into a library and opening a book and then experiencing a whole nother life and doing that over and over, a little exhausting, but so adventurous and I think cool. Such a cool concept. Tabitha Brown, Feeding the Soul. This was the nonfiction motivational book I was talking about. Not really my cup of tea, but reading from Tabitha Brown, she is such a sweetheart, and I just had to give it a 4. Just hearing her story, everything she's went through, and all of that. She definitely is very motivational and such a sweetie, but I don't know. I just don't really think books like that are something that I really like gravitate towards, but I did enjoy reading it, and she also had some really yummy recipes in it as well. And I have just about the same amount as 4 stars as I do 5 stars, 21. That's not bad at all. If I can get 25-star books in a year, reading only 61 books, that's pretty good. But now I'm kind of second guessing myself, and I'm like, Allie, what did you give 5 stars to? Oh man. Okay, so first of all, let's get through the manga, because I did rank all of my Vampire Knight. They're nostalgic for me. They're not everybody's cup of tea, but for me, they remind me of when I was younger, and I still, my heart, for the storyline of that manga, I gave them 5. I just had to. But I did read, or I guess you could say reread, volume 1, 2, and 3 this year. I also read Tokyo Ghoul, which is also a manga, volume 1 and 2. Loved it. Oh my gosh. I think I actually like it more than One Piece. I really did like One Piece. It's just maybe a little bit younger for me, but I still enjoy it. I think it's an adventure manga. I still want to continue it. But Tokyo Ghoul, oh my gosh, I'm loving it. And I want to pick up the next one. And I also have 2 more graphic novels. Fangs by Sarah Anderson, the same one as The Cryptic Club. But this one was about the vampire and the werewolf that met a bar and fell in love. And it's just like vampire and werewolf jokes as they fall in love. It's just so freaking cute. And then I also read MGK's Hotel Diablo by Machine Gun Kelly and Elliot Rahal. And so good. Absolutely love it. I'm like wondering like, okay, are we gonna get another one? Because it's so good. It has like short stories in it of these characters that are entering the hotel, and I actually need to reread it because it was so good. It's very dark, very edgy, and since they're short stories, I feel like there's so many plots and storylines that you could do with this series. So I really hope that they're working on another one because it was really cool. Okay, now back to Colleen Hoover. I read It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us. It Starts With Us is the sequel, and it just recently came out. So I did read It Ends With Us. It was my first Colleen Hoover book and the best one I've read. I love it. I'm obsessed. I can't help it. Maybe that's my toxic trait. But I absolutely loved it, and I loved It Starts With Us too. I definitely had a little bit of critiques, but in the end, I gave it 5. Lily Bloom, my heart. I also actually experienced some classics, like actual classics this year too. One of them being Dracula. I started it and it was a little slow paced for me to read. I did end up switching to the audiobook, and thank God, it was so entertaining. A lot of the book is read in like letters and journal style, so I found that really interesting, but the people who the narrators of the audiobook did a phenomenal job, so it was really easy to listen to that. I'm just a little slow paced with audiobooks, but classic. Also, Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. Where have I been? I've been under a rock. This is another one that I read and then watched the movie for the first time, and I'm like, this is right up my alley. Like, where have I been with this? It's so good. Salem's Lot, Stephen King, classic, love it. It's Stephen King's take on vampires, and it's so good. And shocker, a lot of the time I love the plot and the stories of his books, and I always usually hate the characters, but I actually enjoyed most of the characters in this one. Unmasked, My Life Solving America's Cold Cases by Paul Holes, I believe. He is a detective, and he kind of just talks about like his, this is a nonfiction. He talks about real life cases and cases that he has solved, and one of them was the Joseph James D'Angelo, also known as the Golden State Killer. So really interesting. You guys know I love true crime. I have a true crime podcast, so I really did enjoy that, and I feel like if I'm going to pick up more nonfiction in 2023, I definitely want some more true crime. Hey guys, some like books that also just blew my mind. Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn, so good. It's about these older women who are now mature, they've retired, they were assassins, and now they're being targeted. And it's such a good book, and there's like this comedy twist to it. The characters are so funny, and I absolutely love the characters. But it kind of goes past and present. It's a really, really good book. If you have the time to read it, I definitely recommend it. I think a lot of people would like that one too. Now this one, on the other hand, a lot of people didn't like, and I am one of the rare people who really enjoyed it. Hide by Kristen White. This was actually her debut adult, and I feel like she got a lot of, how do you guys not like this book? I loved it. I thought it was so entertaining. The characters I thought were really interesting. It's all these people that are kind of hurting. It's kind of like Squid Games. They're all hurting for money. They're all given an opportunity to come and play a game of hide and seek, and they're like testing it out for like a reality show. So they get to come and play hide and seek at an abandoned amusement park where they have to stay for 7 days. So at nighttime they sleep all together in like the same like camping area, and then when the sun comes up they all go hide for the entire day while there's seekers out looking for them or whatever. There is a sci-fi twist. It is horror. I think it was really cool. Sure, it could have been gorier. Sure, there is other, like, I don't want to give anything away, but there's other options that the book could have went, maybe not sci-fi and more slasher, if you will, and I do think that would have been really cool, but I actually really enjoyed it the way it was too. The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. God, I have to pick up another one from her too. Oh, it was so good. The storytelling is so beautifully done. I love the flashbacks. I loved the characters. Oh my God, they were so good. Yeah, amazing book. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I have not picked up the second one of this one yet either. It is YA, but with that being said, I really enjoyed this book. It got 5 for me, and that doesn't happen a lot with YA. Like, it really was a really good book. I think for me, the writing style could have been better because it was so YA, but at the same time, I loved the layout. A lot of it was like texting or her writing notes. Maybe I just like, that interesting, just not turning the page, but you're getting like actual different fonts or different layouts and stuff. I think I found that really interesting with it and different than my usual read. So I really enjoyed that, but I think I also really loved the fact that like, I was just guessing the whole time. I'm like, who did this? She really kept me guessing. I also read the first Alex Cross book series from James Patterson, and that one is Along Came a Spider. I've been a little confused about the order of these books, so I'm trying to navigate that, and I do want to read some more James Patterson this year. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5. I thought it was really interesting, and I'm honestly sad that I've missed out on these for so long. I swear I've read a James Patterson book in the past, and I just cannot think of what it is. I still can't. Also, I had to give 5 stars to The Bad Beginning. It is book 1 of a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket. I read this with my boys, and we have since started the next one, but it's been a little slow paced, I'm not gonna lie. They've really been into Dogman and Splatoon and Bad Guys books lately. So, series of unfortunate events, unfortunately, has taken a little bit of the back burner. Vicious by V. Schwab. I need to pick up the next one. I have a lot of series, you guys, to you know, follow through with. This book was so good. So good that I think I actually want to reread it first and then go to the second one. I have to know where this series goes. These characters are so cool. Definitely has a fantasy vibe to it, paranormal, even like superpower type vibe, and just very dark at the same time. Really, really cool concepts. I was blown away by it. And her writing, amazing. Because I also have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue on here, which is 10 out of 10. I love this book. Please name a more beautifully written book, please. Lastly, I think this is the last one, another classic, Carrie. Stephen King. Who doesn't love Carrie? The Story of Carrie. I actually kind of want to read, I forgot what it's called, but it's kind of like a newer take on the story of Carrie, but I think it actually involves, instead of like the bullying that she got, the new one involves bullying and racism, and I really want to try it out. There's supposed to also be like that telekinesis and, you know, the showdown at the end. So I actually really want to check that one out too eventually. But yeah, you guys, we made it. This is a long, long video, longer than I thought it was going to be, but those were the 61 books that I read in 2022, and like I said, I have so many plans for 2023, and I'm so excited. I'm so giddy, if you couldn't tell, for all the books that are on my TBR and all the plans that I have lined out that I've already been working on. I'm so excited to share with you guys on my channel. If you are new here and you watch this long, long video, thank you so much, and I hope you hit subscribe because there's going to be a lot more book content this year. I still will be posting vlogs and beauty content, of course, but a lot of book content coming this year. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next video. Oh, and let me know, what was your guys' favorite books for 2022? Let me know in the comments. Stop staring, be quiet, look at me, there I go, choking on my silence, and I don't think you want me 'cause I wanna keep it